mercy, compassion, forgiveness. 3 of the most powerful words on the planet. And today I'm going to show you how to embrace their strength. Every single person is powerful, perfect as they are. And I believe we all have a role to play in making this world a better place. My purpose is to help people step into their power. Holding on to the bitterness or hurt, where people have hurt or abused you, is corrosive. It's like giving yourself the poison and expecting the person who hurt you to die. Holding on to the hurt and bitterness does nothing to hurt them back, or teach the person who's caused the hurt to do things differently. It fails to touch them at all. In fact, the likelihood is that they're completely oblivious to your continued pain and suffering, and if they were, they probably don't care. Whilst the victim holds on to the hurt and bitterness, they remain firmly chained to the pain and trauma of the past. The past will continue to spoil the present and any chance of having a happy future until they're prepared to let go and forgive. But let's get something really clear. Forgiving does not mean that you condone the act which has caused such pain, nor does it mean forgetting. It happened and it was wrong. Unless you're prepared to give yourself the gift of forgiving, there'll always be a part of you which has got one foot in the past, looking back. Part of your thoughts, your energy, your sense of self-esteem and confidence will remain locked into holding on to the negative experience. Holding on to the pain takes huge amounts of headspace and energy, which could be used much more productively. Burying the negative emotions may seem like the answer, but in reality, that too takes lots of energy. It impacts on your sense of well-being, and you're extremely likely to be triggered when you least expect it and when it's most inconvenient. Each time the old negative emotions bubble up to the surface, you will relive the old hurt. Hurt and emotional pain can be caused in so many ways. Intentionally inflicted, or when we're collateral damage to others' insensitivity or simply lack of thought. There are endless opportunities in life for us to feel that we've been treated badly or unfairly. Separation, divorce, parenting, bullying, abuse, and unfair treatment are a rich source of hurt, which can create a prison of unhappiness and lost opportunities. Holding on to the hurt can lead to unhappiness, depression, anxiety, eating disorders, addiction, poor self-worth, lack of confidence. The list goes on and on. Perhaps less obvious is the impact of those who live their lives in a way which is designed to avoid their being hurt. They fail to open their hearts to potential love in case they get hurt again. They build a shell around themselves and are too frightened to allow themselves to be vulnerable. By doing so, they eliminate any possibility of creating a loving, lasting relationship with a significant other. I'm not for a moment suggesting that forgiveness is easy, but it is really worth it. I believe it's the greatest gift that you can give yourself. The challenge of letting go may feel daunting. It may sound difficult, even impossible. But if you're open to the possibility of forgiving, you're already halfway there. Forgiving others is a real game changer. Life suddenly takes on a whole new, far happier reality full of possibilities. No matter what has caused your hurt, you can choose to carry the burden or to move on. Even in the depths of the bleakness, there are positive things to take out of your situation. You are a survivor. In my experience, those who have survived have developed inner strength and a resilience, and they often have huge empathy for others. I've worked with many abused people, and I know there's a huge transformation created by forgiveness. With forgiveness has come freedom. Forgiving others is incredibly important but it's only half the story. We're often much harder on ourselves than we are on others. I've met clients who are still beating themselves up for doing something they regret or for failing to act decades later. It's quite common for those who've been significantly abused to blame themselves for allowing it to happen, even when this is patently not the case. It's each person's beliefs and perceptions which are driving the emotions here. Forgiving yourself is incredibly important, but make no mistake, forgiveness is not about letting yourself off the hook. Far from it. Guilt is a call to action, to do things differently, to put right where that's possible, to make amends. Crucially, it's about learning the lesson that the experience offers. And then it's time to forgive yourself, to let the guilt and regret go, and to move forward. We've been talking about forgiveness, something that people find very difficult to do, but actually is the most important gift that you can give yourself. I've worked with many people who've been abused, and I'd like to share with you the story of one of my clients. As a child, her grandparents looked after her on a fairly regular basis. Every time she went, she would cry, and her parents would actually say to her, "You're going to be fine, you're going to have a lovely time." What they didn't realise is that her grandfather was systematically abusing her. She said nothing because her grandfather had actually threatened that he would do something to harm her and her parents. It came out as she became more and more anxious in a form of OCD. By the time she reached university, she'd got away from her grandfather, but she was in a state, and her OCD was actually running her life. In the end, she had to leave university. I think it's amazing that she married and she had 2 children, and by the time she came to me, her OCD was threatening her marriage. As we talked about what had happened, one of the principles that we had to share and was very difficult for her to take on board was that forgiving is not about condoning the act. There is nothing that makes the way her grandfather behaved acceptable. And nor is it about forgetting. But make no mistake, unless you forgive and you forgive truly and fully, you will still be tied back to that incident or incidents just as clearly as if there was a chain pulling you back and the weight of a huge portmanteau that you've got to drag into the present and the future. Now, I've only got a few minutes to share this story with you, and I can't share with you blow by blow the stages that we went to. But suffice it to say that this client had the strength and the courage to forgive her grandfather and to forgive her parents for making her go, even though they were completely oblivious. After all, you ought to be able to trust your parents and your grandparents. My client actually had more difficulty in forgiving herself. Even though she was only 8 when the abuse started, in some weird way, she believed that she was in some way responsible, that if she had been strong enough, that she would have been able to stop it. Her sense of worth was very poor. She was worried about everything that went on. She was fearful of even the most simple things. Helping her recalibrate what was risk and what wasn't, and giving her simple strategies to deal with each situation so she could be prepared for it made a huge difference. One of the things that she was frightened of was that dog mess on the pavement might actually affect her and her children. If she'd just as much as seen some dog mess on the pavement, then all of the children and her would have to go home, have a shower, the clothes would be washed twice, and nothing could happen until all of those things had gone on. It was ruining her life. Recognizing that she was not responsible and forgiving herself was a huge step forward. Today, I'm really pleased to report that today things are incredibly different. And while she still has to manage her OCD, it's very much under control. She's cut her tablets down a huge amount, and the quality of her day-to-day life has changed exponentially. Her relationship with her husband is so much better, and just as important to her and to me is that she's modelling a very different way of being to her two small children. Forgiveness was at the heart of that. So, pretty well all of us have got something that we need to forgive. Do yourself a favour. Give yourself one of the biggest gifts that you can. Forgive the people who've upset you. Let it go. Remember, you don't condone and you don't forget, but in the letting go, you have freedom. And forgive yourself. It really is important. Let's look at some mailbag questions on forgiveness. Firstly, I hate what happened to me so much. How can I possibly forgive the person who did this to me? I'm really sorry you've had such a difficult time, and be assured I'm not in any way making light of what happened to you and the pain that you've experienced because of it. But whilst you hold on to the hate and the hurt, you're continuing to hand the person who hurt you your power. Let me explain. Whatever happened in the past has obviously hurt you, but every day you're holding on to the hate, it colours the experience you're having right now. Part of you is constantly reliving the experience at some level. It's tainting the quality of your day-to-day experience in the now. It's just as if there's a chain yanking you back into the past, so your present and your future are unable to expand to be as positive and as fulfilling as they could be. Ask yourself whether you want to continue as you are, or if you want a brighter, more loving future. Whilst you may not have had the power to avoid the original situation, you do have the choice to really let it go, and that requires forgiveness. Number 2, I'm completely overwhelmed by the pain caused by the past. How can I make it more manageable? There is no doubt that allowing yourself to forgive is the most powerful way to deal with such pain. Dealing with negative emotion is important. As outlined in our previous episodes, negative emotions have a purpose, so don't be afraid of them. Rather than avoid the negative emotions or trying to bury them, allow yourself to sit with and acknowledge them. They're a sign that something needs to be dealt with, to learn a lesson and to move on. There are lots of techniques to make them more manageable, and you'll find some in podcasts on forgiveness. It's on the website, genuinely-you.com. Number 3, my child is being bullied and I want to teach them forgiveness, but I don't want them to be a victim. What should I do? There is no doubt that bullying is a growing challenge, as not only are children exposed to bullying face-to-face, they now have to contend with bullying over social media. Encourage your child to share their concerns. The calmer you can be, the better. Acknowledge that they're finding things difficult, but avoid sensationalising things. It's vital that you alert the school, the leader of the group, or the social media platform if bullying is ongoing. Don't be fobbed off if they dismiss you. If things are not sorted out, persist. Please don't encourage your child to engage in being aggressive back. It simply creates another problem. The best way to help your child to avoid being bullied is to help them to develop a great sense of self-worth and confidence. Encourage your child to take up interests and find something they enjoy and that they're good at. I urge you to set boundaries around phone and computer usage, establish this early and stick to your guns, as teenagers will push to have access 24/7. Not only is this hugely detrimental to sleeping, it also gives others total access to be unkind. I'd suggest mealtimes free of electronics and a curfew of at least 90 minutes before bedtime. I'll share with you a technique called I'm Enough in a later show, which works incredibly well for children and adults alike. As always, I'd like to leave you with the principles which make a positive difference when you implement them into your life. I make no apology for repeating them because they're just so important. Holding on to the bitterness is like giving yourself the poison and expecting the other to die. Don't let past baggage destroy your present and future happiness. And remember lastly that forgiveness is not about forgetting or condoning. Give yourself the gift of forgiveness. It's been such a pleasure to be with you today, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you in the next programme, where we will be looking at how, when things get difficult and you feel stressed, anxious, overwhelmed or depressed, you can dig yourself out of that deep, dark hole. Discover how to stop feeling that nothing you do is ever right or good enough, and learn how to feel good about yourself and own your achievements with confidence. Until then, be genuinely you. Want to learn more? Grab a copy of my #1 best-selling book, Thriving Not Surviving: The 5 Secret Pathways to Happiness, Success and Fulfillment, on Amazon or wherever good books are sold.